Hello students, future doctors and engineers. Welcome to our YouTube channel Medji Exam, the platform where smart work is always preferred over hard work. I am Pawan Shah with cream of the theme series in physics, starting with class 12th. We are doing chapter 1, electric charges and fields. And today we will discuss part 6. The topic covered will be area vector, electric flux, continuous charge distribution and Gauss theorem and their properties. So, first of all, area vector. Normally we know that area, most of the time when we use the area, we are not using the vector form of that, but sometimes we needed to use vector for area also, and we call it as area vector. Usually and mostly that vector is perpendicular to the surface of the area. So, we can call them as normal area vector, normal area vector or normal area vector, area vector. So, area vector or normal area vector is the physical quantity having area and its direction normal to the surface, okay, perpendicular to the surface. The unit vector will be perpendicular to the surface of the area. Now, the planar area vector. Planar area vector means the area will be a plane surface and the unit vector will be perpendicular to that plane surface. Let this is a plane surface and it is in the plane of the paper, then normal to the plane of the paper, perpendicular to the plane of the paper will be its direction, and we can assign it as normal area vector, n cap. We can say it as n cap. So, this plane has two directions, either perpendicular up out of the plane of the paper or going inside plane of the paper. If you take perpendicular up as positive, then going perpendicular down into the plane of the paper, that is said to be negative, negative n cap. We can call that as negative L cap. So, for planar area vector, there is two directions, either up or either down, but that will be perpendicular, that will make 90-degree angle with the plane of the area vector. So, planar area vector is the physical quantity whose magnitude represents a plane and direction normal to the plane. Okay. Now, the curved surface, this is the curved surface. For curved surface, the perpendicular to the tangent, will make the direction of the area vector, or we can call it as n cap. If it is perpendicular outward, then its sign will be taken as positive by convention, and if it is perpendicular inside, then its sign is taken as negative. So, it is here convention that for curved surface, the direction coming outward is said to be positive and direction going inside the curved surface is said to be negative. In this curved surface, because this n cap is different in different direction to the curved surface, so we take a small, very small part of that curved surface, and that will act as planar surface, plane area, that is known as area element. So, for curved surface, area element is small plane area and its direction is normal to it, So, area vector, plane area vector and area element for curved. We can take area element even for planar area also, small area, small portion and with direction, that is taken as that also can be called as area element. So, this is all about area vectors, and that area vector is used in the next physical quantity, we call it as electric flux. So, what is electric flux? Electric flux is the electric field lines passing through a given area or area vector. Let this is an area vector, and number of electric field lines passing to this perpendicular, that is out of the plane of the paper, let like that. That is called as the electric flux. Total number of electric field lines passing through the plane of the paper is called electric flux, but that is the relative term. the number of electric field lines passing through a given area vector, that is the relative term. That number may be less, may be more. Okay. Other way of defining electric flux is that dot product of electric field and normal area vector. Dot product of electric field and area vector. As for example, let this is an area, and its area vector is in this way, and electric field lines are passing through this. This is the electric field lines. So in this case, normal area vector is in this, and electric field lines are passing also in this. So they are making angle 0 degree. The angle between normal area vector and electric field lines is 0 degree. So if you put here in this definition E ds cos theta, this theta is the angle between electric field lines or electric field lines or electric field and normal area vector. So electric flux is dot product of electric field and normal area vector, or we can call it as also E ds cos theta. If we make the dot product of E and ds, it will be E ds cos theta. This is for small flux, for a small area, a small flux. If we want the whole flux, for that we have to integrate, and so in that case phi or total flux will be integration of E dot ds. Okay. So there are the two way of defining of the electric flux. One way is in terms of number of electric field lines, that is electric field lines passing through a given area vector. And another way is that dot product of electric field and normal area vector is called electric flux. So I am going to write another definition: dot product of electric field and area vector. Okay. The unit of electric flux will be voltmeter, or we can also say Newton meter square per coulomb, and definitely it is a scalar quantity because it is the dot product of two vector quantity. So it is a scalar quantity. Any physical quantity, it is the dot product of two vector quantity, then it will be a scalar quantity. Okay. Now see, we know discrete charges, that is point charges, but in reality or in most of the time, in most of the cases, in practical situation, we mostly face continuous charge, not the discrete point charge. We face the continuous charge. That is the so that we can define this continuous charge distribution as charge distribution continuously at microscopic level. At microscopic level, maybe that is point charge, discrete charge here, like that, here, like that. But at microscopic level, charges may be continuous, and if it is uniformly distributed, then it is said to be charge distribution continuously at microscopic level. That is continuous charge distribution. That is, charge is distributed throughout the surface or throughout the volume or throughout the line, like that. So in that way, means if this is a body and if this charge is distributed uniformly throughout like that, we call it as linear charge distribution. That is linear charge distribution. Uniform charge distribution on one dimensional body per unit length, that is linear charge density. Actually, this is the distribution, and for density, let this length is L and the total charge is, let this length is L or delta L, up to this length is delta L, and total charge in this is delta Q. So what will be the linear charge density? Charge density per unit length, So in this case, that is lambda equals to charge upon length, that will be the linear charge density, and its unit definitely will be coulomb per meter. Similarly, this is for linear body. If you take the aerial body, this type, and in this charge is distributed uniformly, and let this total charge is delta Q and the area, total area is delta A. So in that case, delta Q by delta A, that is said to be areal charge density. Okay, this one, areal charge density, and its unit will be coulomb per meter. Similarly, volume charge density means there is a body, and in this body charge is placed uniformly throughout the volume. Charge is placed uniformly throughout the volume, and let the total charge in this volume is delta Q and total volume is delta V. Then this is said to be volume charge density, that is uniform charge distributed per unit volume. That is called volume charge density. This is the formula for volume charge density. Okay, and definitely its unit will be coulomb per meter. Okay, so there are three types of charge density in continuous charge distribution. There are three types of charge densities: linear charge density, areal charge density, and volume charge density. Okay, now we will see the very important theorem we call it as Gauss theorem. Let us first understand what is the meaning of this Gauss theorem. There is a charge distribution here plus Q, here 2 plus Q, here 3 plus Q, and we have to find the electric field for this whole charges in this curved surface, then the electric flux will be, according to this Gauss theorem, electric flux will be E dot ds or E dot s of this whole surface, and that will be equals to total charge enclosing on this surface upon epsilon naught. The total charge enclosing is 3q plus 2q plus q, that is by additive nature it will be 3 plus 2, 5 plus 1, 6q by epsilon naught. So this is the Gauss theorem. So Gauss theorem states that total electric flux passing through a closed surface, it should be for any closed surface. Total electric flux passing through a closed surface is 1 upon epsilon naught times the charge enclosed by the surface, and this is the mathematical form of Gauss theorem. Gauss theorem is very, very important. We will find applications of the Gauss theorem. We will discuss in coming videos the applications of the Gauss theorem, mostly for finding electric field. Okay, what is Gaussian surface? See, here is plus 3 coulomb charge, here is plus 5 coulomb charge, and we have to find the electric field intensity at this point. Then what we will do, we will make an imaginary curved surface, imaginary closed surface. This imaginary closed surface is called as Gaussian surface. This imaginary closed surface is called as Gaussian surface. And when now we can apply the Gauss theorem to find the electric flux or electric field, and due to this charge enclosed inside this Gaussian surface. So what is the Gaussian surface? It is hypothetical surface. It is not real, it is a hypothetical surface drawn around the charge to apply Gauss theorem. Wherever we want to apply the Gauss theorem, at that if we able to draw a surface, Gaussian surface, so that we can apply the Gauss theorem, then that surface is called as Gaussian surface. Okay. Now let us see the properties of Gauss theorems. A few properties of Gauss theorem, then we will see the applications of Gauss theorem in the coming videos. Okay, so properties of Gauss theorem: true for any closed surface. For any closed surface, if you can draw any closed Gaussian surface, for that the Gauss theorem is applicable. It is true. Now Q in right side of the equation, what is the equation? E ds. Equation is that E ds equals to Q upon epsilon naught. This is Q inside, actually this is Q inside upon epsilon naught. So Q in right side, this is the right side, Q in right side of the equation represents sum of charge enclosed by Gaussian surface. This Q is the charge enclosing the Gaussian surface. If this is the Gaussian surface, then this Gaussian surface include whatever charge that represents this Q inside. Okay. Next, if Gaussian surface chosen in such a that some charges are outside, let here is some charge plus q, here is few charge minus 3q, let here outside the Gaussian surface. So, if we have chosen the Gaussian surface in such a way that here is some charge is outside Gaussian surface, some charge is inside Gaussian surface, then if Gaussian surface chosen in such a that some charges are outside, then electric field on the left side, this electric field on the left side of equation will be due to all the charges. Due to all the charges means due to this plus q charges also, and due to this minus 3q charges also, means the charges present inside the Gaussian surface, this is the Gaussian surface, charges present inside the Gaussian surface and charges present outside the Gaussian surface. For whole of these charges, this will be the electric field. So, left side the electric field is outside the electric field on the left side of equation will be due to all the charges, but on right side q will be due to enclosed Gaussian surface only. That means what? The electric field represents due to all these charges plus q as well as minus q, that is the charge present inside the Gaussian surface or the charge present outside the Gaussian surface. For whole that electric field represented in left side, but in right side of the Gauss theorem, in the mathematical form of the Gauss theorem, the q will represent only the charge present inside the Gaussian surface. That is the meaning of this point, important point. Okay. Come to the next point. Gaussian surface should not pass through only will not be there. Gaussian surface should not pass through discrete charge, because electric field due to system of discrete charges is not well defined at the location of any discrete charges. That means it is the meaning that here is a discrete charge, here is a discrete charge, here is a discrete charge. So, Gauss theorem should not pass through the discrete charges, because at this point electric field is not well defined. At the discrete charges electric field is not well defined. So, the Gaussian surface we draw, it should not pass through it should not pass through the discrete charges. That is the meaning of this point. Gaussian surface should not pass through discrete charges, because electric field due to a system of discrete charges is not well defined at the location of any discrete charge. Due to that reason, Gaussian surface cannot cross the discrete charge, cannot cross through discrete charge. We should not draw the Gaussian surface in such a way so that it crosses the discrete charges. Okay. Next is Gaussian surface can pass through continuous charge distribution. Yes, Gaussian surface, we cannot make the Gaussian surface pass through discrete charges, but if there is continuous charge distribution like that, we can make the Gaussian surface so that it crosses the charge. We can make like that the Gaussian surface, but for discrete charge we cannot cross the Gaussian surface through the discrete charge. Okay. Next, useful for calculating electric field for symmetrical system. This Gauss theorem is applicable or useful for calculating the electric field for symmetrical system, that we will discuss in the next video. Next, depend on inverse square law. Yes, Gauss theorem depend on inverse square law. So, any violation, last point. So, any violation in Gauss law will indicate departure from inverse square law. So, these are all the properties related to the Gauss theorem, and Gauss theorem is very important theorem, and we will now see the application. In next video we will see the applications of Gauss theorem. So, for today we can stop here, and if you want to download the PDF, link has been given in the description box. If you like the video, then like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.